And you're all welcome. Let's expect for everyone to come in from the waiting room. That's something we've learned in the past few years, right? How to function or how to deal with these environments we have as this new platform here that I've just learned, or earlier today I learned how to use. So once again, welcome everyone. I'm really, really glad to be live, which means Disal's been around for a long while. And I remember the first new roots, the professionals of Disal, who helped me become a better professional. So I'm really glad to be at this place, at this house, even as a virtual house this afternoon. So again, welcome, good afternoon. And I want to start by saying that this is a presentation on building your professional identity. And the very fact that you're all here on a Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. already says a lot about who you are and who you want to be as professionals of English language teaching. So, if you don't mind, to make the best use of our time, let's on who we are as professionals and who we want to be. So this is not one of those 5 ways to, 10 secrets for, or anything like that. This is not a recipe. Right, the opposite. This is a moment for each of us to find their own path towards developing professionally. Okay? Do you have a deal on that? So, basically, what we're going to do here is talk about or reflect upon 3 questions which have to do with who we are as and who we want to be as professionals of English language teaching. Okay? And this is the very first question. The question is, how do I see myself as a professional? Can you all see me? Let me see here if there's anyone. Thank you for your good afternoons and the welcomes. Can you see me properly? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Felipe. Point is, I'm here at the Avenida, at Paulista Avenue, at Avenida Paulista, and there's lots of antennae and things to compete for the signal, for the Wi-Fi and everything. So thank you. As you can see and hear me loud and clear, thank you very much. So let's get back to our question. The question is, how do I see myself as a professional? This is probably something you ask your, perhaps you ask your, well, I'll get back to that in the second question. In this first one, you ask yourself very often. But the point is, it's not very often that we stop and think about who we are as professionals. And here I have a couple questions which we can ask ourselves when we really want to get to know ourselves better as professionals. I know I'm here dangerously flirting with psychology, and that's not the point. See, my schooling is in letras, and then linguistics, but not psychology. So this is not for me to act here as a psychologist, but on a different aspect, which is self-analysis as a professional VLT. Okay. So the first question is, what are my qualities? What are the qualities I recognize in myself when I'm acting as, say, a teacher or a coordinator, a director of studies, or whatever it is? What are the qualities I perceive? We're not talking about what other people say yet. We're talking about what we perceive as our qualities in our professional practice. How do you see yourself? What are the qualities you recognize in yourself during your practice as a professional? This may sound like a very obvious or simple question, but it is definitely not, because that's the moment we start to build our self-image, which is the last question here, our self-image as professionals. So first question, and this presentation will be available to you later so that you don't have to print the screen or take pictures. It'll be free for you. It'll be available to you later. Okay? So first is, what are my qualities? And on the other hand, what are the professional areas I need to develop? Which professional areas specifically do I need to develop? Is it, for example, my knowledge of language, the language we work with? Is it my knowledge of how to teach? Is it my knowledge of culture, our culture and foreign cultures? Is it my knowledge of class management? Is it my knowledge of, say, technology, educational technology? So what are the professional aspects I need to develop which are not at the state-of-the-art level I want them to be? And this is a very difficult, a very tough question, because it means dealing with our flaws. And that's never easy. Looking inside and dealing with our flaws is never an easy task. It is as difficult as it is important and necessary. The third question we have here is, where are my triggers and my insecurities located? In other words, what is it that I tend to avoid when working, when practicing what I do? This is really, really important, and a question which is very rarely asked. So again, if I think about my insecurities, my triggers, things I tend to avoid, situations I tend to avoid, where are they located? Because from the moment I can recognize them, I can deal with that in a way that they're not so relevant anymore. That does not mean you just think about it, think about them, and get rid of them. But that if we know where they're located and why they freeze me, they paralyze me, then I can deal with them more properly. And by knowing where they're located, I can perhaps contain the problems they bring to my practice, or the difficulties they bring to my practice. Okay, again, I know it's not easy, I know it's sort of painful, but still it's certainly worthwhile and necessary for our development as professionals. Okay? The fourth question we have here is, if I had to, how would I describe myself? See, again, as a professional. So if I had to write a letter, say, describing myself as a professional, how would I do that? How would I describe myself? What aspects of my practice would I highlight? What aspects of my personality would I highlight? What aspects of what experiences I've had would I again include in that description? So this is a question very interesting for reflection, which is how, if I had to, how would I describe myself? Okay? And finally, well, not finally, finally, in this list, we could probably have dozens of other questions, but in this case is, what is my self-image? Which derives from the four questions before this one, which is from knowing my qualities, the aspects I need to develop, my triggers and insecurities, my description of myself, all this helps me or leads me to build a self image. That person or that professional I believe I am. Perhaps it's not that easy again. You're probably thinking, well, I came here to learn how to develop, and this person keeps asking me to ask myself personal questions. I'm sorry about that, but I really do believe, we really do believe, they're important and necessary for you to become a better professional, an ever evolving professional of ELT. Okay? Again, ask yourself these questions and be, my final word of advice here is, ask yourself these questions and be honest. Sometimes it may be extremely uncomfortable. It may even be sort of painful, but it is necessary if we want to progress without all those constraints that hinder us from moving on, from moving forward. Okay? And how can we do that? What are some techniques, some ways we can do to answer those questions? I have some ideas here, and you may come up with, again, many others. So the first one is dedicate time to reflection. Instead of scrolling for hours, just put your mobile phone in airplane mode, right? Flight mode, whatever. And then save some time, separate some time for you to reflect about yourself. Just think about yourself. If you'd rather, you can write lists of qualities, a list of qualities, a list of aspects to develop, a list of possible self-descriptions. It works for me, right? This is a technique I like to use. I like lists. I'm crazy about lists, actually. So if you like them to, go ahead. If not, if you prefer to write a story or a letter or anything like that, narratives also work very well. As if you were writing perhaps your personal journal, your personal diary. That might work. Again, and this blank line is about what you yourself, you personally like to do when you want to work on your own reflection. Perhaps not even professionally, but say about your relationships. I know many people who like to write that down. That works very well. Some others like recording their ideas. I have this goddaughter. She used to have what she called a daily vlog. Every single night, evening at 10 p.m., she would record to herself, not to publish anywhere, but to herself, what her day was like. It was something very simple, 30 seconds, 1 minute, in which she would summarize her day to herself so that she could remember and reflect upon later. For the surprise of no one, she's now a psychology student. So whatever helps you register your reflections, go for it, because this will help you answer those previous questions, and then again have um, registered material for you to use afterwards. So you can use that afterwards for your reflection. Okay? So this is the first question. How do I see myself as a professional? The second one, which is coming now, perhaps wouldn't be so important, say 15 years ago, before social media, or, well, we had Orkut at that time. It was the very first one, but we didn't have mobile phones. Now we have mobile phones and plenty of social media, right? Facebook and Instagram and all those. So this question becomes even more important in times of social media, which is, how do other people see me as a professional? What is the image my community has of me as a professional? Again, not an easy question to answer, but still, in this case, differently from the first one. In this case, you may count on the help of others. So these are some of the questions. We can break that big one question into these other questions for our reflection. Again, first is, what do people usually say to me about me? Okay. What is it people say? You're so such and such. I notice that you usually act in such and such a way. What do people usually say to me about me? This is really important, because our life and our ideas and our perception of the world is basically made out of our interconnections. So when people tell me I'm, for example, talkative, as the more people tell me I'm talkative, the more I'll believe I am. And this happens very much. I'll tell you something interesting. About 10 or 15 days ago, a couple weeks ago, I was on vacation in a certain country. And people I never thought I would be seen as a national, but people kept telling me, hey, you look like you're from here. You look like you live here. You look like our friends. You look like our family. And by the end of the 10 or 11 days I spent there, I was beginning to believe I looked local. So that's the idea, what people say to me about me. And the second question is even trickier. What do people usually say to other people about me? When they come and say Luciana, Luciana is so, Luciana is such, Luciana tends to be. So it's maybe interesting to ask people what they usually talk about when you are or I am the subject. We'll get back to that. Okay. Next, what are the traits, the characteristics which are usually associated to me? Let's play that activity we all do in class, which is filling the blanks or filling the gaps. So we have people say I am. People usually say I am. And then the blank lines that you can fill in with the characteristics people associate with you. This has much to do with the two previous questions. What people say about me, to me about me, and say to others about me is usually has to do with those characteristics that are associated with me. And sometimes, again, I'm flirting with psychology here, and sometimes we hear them so often, we tend to believe, even if we're not exactly that way. Does that ring a bell? Do you relate to that in any way? Next, and this is really important, who are my personal references? Who inspires me? If I think of someone from my community, is I'd like to be, I'd like to act, to perform, to be like that person. Again, if I think of a celebrity, right, what is it that inspires me or that I admire when thinking about someone? For example, let's use a very cliche reference, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was never visibly angry at anyone. He might be angry, probably was, but he never allowed that to become something in relation to other people. So that's something I admire in Gandhi, and I would very much like to do the same, or to act the same way. Unfortunately, I'm not even close, but I keep trying. Utopias are important for life. So again, who are or what are your personal references? Who are your inspirations, your role models, so to speak? Your role models, who are they? And why, most importantly, why are they your role models? Okay? And finally, what are the messages that my attitudes convey? Not what I say, but what I do instead. That may be really important. When I was an academic coordinator, I had this teacher, part of my team, which was a wonderful person. And she was always in a hurry. And one of the things we would say about that is exactly that. She was always rushing here and there. And once I was at the school I used to work, and she was leaving the school. She had just taught her last class that day, and she had to leave to go somewhere else. When she walked by the waiting room, where there was a place there for students to wait for their classes, she saw a student who wasn't a student of hers, but this girl was clearly having problem dealing with her homework. She left everything. She sat down, she explained the instruction, and only after she made sure the girl had understood what she had to do, then she picked up her stuff and left. So, what we thought about her attitude at that moment told us something completely different, meaning that she thought providing attention to students was more important than rushing here and there. So the question is, what messages do my attitudes convey? And this is important. I read somewhere, perhaps at a restaurant or somewhere, there was this sign, this poster saying, "Your attitudes are so loud, I cannot hear what you're saying." Perhaps it has, or perhaps I saw that on Instagram. But point is, see, pay attention, dedicate some time to reflect on what messages your attitudes convey. Okay? To answer those questions again, some ideas. First, honest, real, heartfelt conversations with your students. I mean, ask yourself, obviously, those ones you feel closer to and you wouldn't feel uncomfortable, or you believe they wouldn't feel uncomfortable talking about you. So ask your students informally if they like your classes, what they like about your classes, how they think you would be a better teacher for them. So things like that. Real, honest conversations with your students. And the same goes, and that's the second idea there, the same goes for colleagues, your peers, peer teachers or coordinators or whatever, friends you feel close with. But then again, the disclaimer before this conversation is be honest and tell me the truth. Meaning, I'm not here fishing for compliment. I know for us culturally, for us Latins in general, not only Brazilians, but for us Latins in general, saying very straightforward things is not something we tend to do very often, right? We usually refrain from saying things that might be seen as criticism. So in this case, it's important for us to tell our colleagues or our students that this is a conversation in which we're not fishing for compliments, but instead to know how we can become better professionals and better people. Okay? That also goes for relationships with your partners, with your family, with your friends, and everything. But then again, we're not here to talk psychology, right? And something, again, that has to do with the previous techniques is perhaps you should choose a notebook like this one, right? And write down your perceptions, your practice, things you did that you believe, well, the class today was wonderful because I did this and that. Well, my lesson today was not that good because something happened. A student acted this way and I reacted that way. And this journal becomes a treasure for those who want to become better professionals because you have a history. It's not that you have to write every day or record a video every day like my granddaughter used to do, but instead that you have the points that you think are worth writing down. What you believe is worth writing down is wonderful for you to write down, to register a history of yourself as a professional. And this is really, really important because you will have the opportunity of dedicating some time to you and to your professional development. Okay? And the final question, which is certainly the most important one, is who do I want to be as a professional? So let's go back again. The first question, how do I see myself as a professional? The second question, how do other people see me as a professional? And now the third question is, who do I want to be as a professional? Those two questions, those two previous questions were actually their goal, their objective, their target was to gather information and perceptions and feelings and intuition. I'm not ruling any of that out. Okay, it's not just the things you can prove and compare and everything. No, perceptions, intuition, feelings are also important. All that culminates on the answer to these questions, to this final question. Who do I want to be as a professional? And in this case, as an ELT professional. And here we have some very nice questions, which may be perhaps easy to answer, maybe not, and certainly exciting to answer. First is, what makes me happy in class? I'll tell you something that makes me as a teacher happy. I'm happy when a student who was facing a very hard time dealing with an aspect of the English language, say pronunciation or structure, or maybe the degree of formality, when they can master it. I'm really happy when I see that happen. That's the reason I always enjoyed teaching the basic levels, because students come to us in, say, the first level, A1, when they want to reach A1 or their pre-A1, and they need the language there, or they have the desire of learning the language, and then you can see their progress. That makes me happy. That makes me very happy, actually. So this is the kind of question and answer you can think of. The second question, again, that has to do with us as professionals is, what makes me proud? I'm proud of being a teacher because I'm proud of being a director of studies. I'm proud of being whatever it is that my role is now, because such and such. I'd say that what makes me proud is being recognized by my students as someone who helped them succeed. So now, after 38 years, almost 40 years since I started my career as a teacher, I have students who come to me, former students who come to me to say, I became a teacher of English because of you, because of the moment, because of that time when you were my teacher. And I'm really, really, really proud of that. Mm. Anyway, that's my experience. You may probably be. I'm really proud of how I mastered the language. I'm proud of how my students learn having fun while having fun. I'm proud of the materials I prepare for students and how much they enjoy working with those materials. Things like that. Third question is, what motivates me? Basically, the question is, what keeps me moving forward? I said in the beginning, I mentioned the utopia. There's this question, this literary question, this: if we cannot reach utopia, what why do we still have it? I don't know the exact words, but the answer is to keep us moving towards it, to keep us moving forward. Okay, so what is it that motivates me? What keeps me going? And this is good to name, to register, to think about, and never to forget. Right? What motivates me again is helping students learn in any way possible. Nowadays, as in a bureaucratic role, I want to believe that what I do here at CNA helps students nationwide in every state of this country to become better speakers of English and Spanish, right? The next one, and this is more hands-on, is what are my plans? The typical old cliche job interview question. How do I see myself 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What are my plans? And here I'm not talking about dreams. I'm talking about plans, which is something not entirely different, but much less concrete, right? The idea is, what are my plans? What can I do to reach that goal? And finally, which for me, if you haven't paid attention to anything here till now, this is the one question I believe encompasses all the others, which is, what do I want my legacy to be? When I reach the end of this journey, say when I retire or when I change careers, whatever, when I reach the end of this journey, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be? What do I want my legacy to my students, to my colleagues, to my school, to my community? What do I want this legacy to be? And this is really a precious question. When you've been around for some time, like I have, it's good to look back and say, well, I've made some good decisions and bad decisions, but the balance is positive. If we can reach that, I have this friend who says, well, being a good father, a good professional, a good friend is basically making less mistakes than what you do right, doing right more than you do wrong. Sounds simple, and it is simple, but it's not easy. Okay? And what can we do to answer those questions? First, take notes. Again, this has been said throughout this presentation, which is writing things down, or recording, or a video, or an audio, or drawing, whatever it is that you do to register, write down things you like. you'd like to remember later. Second, build scenarios. Scenarios building is a technique which is great, which is that works like this. If I decide to become a university teacher, this is the scenario. So what I have to do, how do I get there? How do I plan to get there? What I need to study, what I need to do, the kind of connections I need to make, who I need to know, etc., etc. Instead, if I want to move towards being an academic coordinator, pedagogical coordinator, what do I need to do? What do I need to study? Who do I need to talk to? What are the skills I need to acquire to become a good academic coordinator, right? Then again, we said it before, I repeat it here, planning. A plan is more than building a scenario. The scenario is general. Planning is, in 3 months, I'll have to have acquired such and such a skill. 1 year from now, I need to be at this place, etc., etc. So plans have goals, dates, who's responsible, and the tools that I needed to reach those goals. Okay? And finally, these two have a lot to do with what I believe, if you allow me. First is coherence with your values. Don't try to be someone or a professional that goes against what you believe in your very core. That which makes you the individual you are. If you do anything that is not coherent, that goes against what you really believe, it will certainly be unsuccessful. So take my advice and don't even try, right? Be coherent with your very core values, with the things you believe and that make you the person you are. Okay? And finally, have fun throughout the process, right? It's not true that we have to suffer during our careers and then have fun after we retire. Right, the opposite. I believe we choose to be teachers first because we like to study, right? If we didn't like to study, we wouldn't be teachers in the first place, or at least not good teachers. And second, because teaching or working with education in general is more often than not fun. That doesn't mean we have fun all the time, right? It's not a sitcom, it's not a stand-up comedy. What I mean is most of the times we tend to have fun in what we do because we learn from our students and our colleagues. Our work environments tend to be, not always, but mostly, tend to be more collaborative than competitive. And if you've ever worked in sales, you know what I'm talking about. Or if you've ever worked for a bank, you know what I'm talking about. So schools, educational environments in general tend to be less competitive than most other environments. And that allows us to have more fun, to enjoy our day, enjoy what you're doing. Again, not every day, not all the time, but more often than not. Okay? So before I move on to your questions and your ideas, I said I would leave some 15 minutes for questions and contributions at the end. I want to close this by going back to the beginning. First saying, what was the first question? The first question is, how do I see myself as a professional? And then we had those breakdown questions having to do with what we should ask ourselves. And this, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, this is an individual activity, an individual task. So the questions we should ask ourselves and some ideas on how to answer those questions. Then we moved on to the second question, which is how do others see me as a professional? In that case, we can resort on other people to help us by asking them questions and asking them to help us build our self-image. This is something we do every day. We do that with our colleagues, we do that in our profiles on social media, and etc. But what I'm proposing here is that we do that in a structured way. I mean, let's write down, let's ask people in a quiet place, what do you think, who do you think I am as a teacher, etc., etc., etc. That was the second question, which is firstly developed or answered. Those questions are answered in conjunction with someone else, in tandem with someone else. But then again, when you write down, when you actually reflect upon that, again, you're on your own. And that's important. Self-reflection, doing things on our own individually has been seriously neglected lately. It's time for us to have some quality time with ourselves, right? And those two questions, they bring us to this final question, which is on the screen, which is, who do I want to be as a professional? Or in other words, what is the legacy I want to leave behind, right? And again, this is something which may be done first, or I don't want to say first and second, but both individually and collectively, and in pairs, and talking to other people and saying what you think, what your professional journey you want to be, and how people react to that, and etc. Right? So to sum up all we've talked about so far, we're here. I started saying the title of this presentation is Building Your Professional Identity. What we did was go through these three questions I just mentioned to be able to draw a picture of the professionals we are and the picture of the professionals we want to be, no matter what stage of our careers we're at. If we're novice teachers just beginning or planning to be teachers or preparing to be teachers, or if we've been around for years or decades like some of us here, right? If we can stop and think about it and really reflect on our strengths and weaknesses, our dreams and plans, then we're certainly on the right path towards becoming better professionals. Okay? I hope this has been somehow useful. These 45 minutes have been useful. And if you, one final piece of advice, if I may, sometimes we're not able to do that by ourselves. So I said in the beginning that I was here dangerously flirting with psychology. Sometimes we need professional help. It's not only when we are very anxious or when we have some sort of difficulty or problem that we should look for professional help. Sometimes is to help us pave the way to our future. So if you believe you have those areas you cannot reach about yourself, those blind areas, so to speak, then it's time to look for a professional who can help you do that. I'll tell you, I'm currently in a process of mentorship with this professional who has nothing to do with education, but she's asking, we've had three of 4 sessions so far, and she's been asking me precious questions. And her questions have been helping me become a better professional. I hope. I don't know if people agree with that, but I feel my perception is that her questions help me deal with some problems at work in a better way. Okay? Thank you so much for your attention. And now I have this is the advertisement time, the ads time. And unfortunately, you don't have that button saying skip ad, right? So I have two things to tell you about. First of all, if you're here, you're certainly interested and dedicated to a professional development. So wearing my hat as past president and advisory council member of BRAZ-TESOL, I want to invite you to join the different events BRAZ-TESOL is doing in different regions of the country and online to celebrate Teachers Month. So let me just show you this button. I'm learning how to do this. Oh, there we go. This is, if you click on that, if you click that button up on your screen, it'll lead you to, it'll take you to BRAZ-TESOL's site, BRAZ-TESOL's site's webpage on the upcoming events, which will take place from this Friday to till the very end of this month of October. So if you're interested, there's one on artificial intelligence, right? The flavor of the month, the buzz expression now. So we have that, you have from that activity to teacher development and dealing with mental health and many other aspects. So that's the first suggestion I have to you to continue this journey as becoming a better professional. The second is, oh, before I move there, let me see this. Let me see if I do it right. My friends from Disal taught me. There you go. Here at CNA, we have this publication which has been around for over 10 years, named Internus e Contornos. This is a publication we have. It's an, I wouldn't like to say it's an academic journal, but it resembles an academic journal. And what we do is we have, in this publication, we have articles in English, Portuguese, and Spanish that critically address different aspects of the educational practice. Not only English language teaching. We've had a lawyer telling us how to use materials and not against the law, the intellectual rights law we have in Brazil. We've had a mathematician telling us how to use mathematics to teach languages. So we have different aspects. You were all here invited to submit articles to talk about your practice, your ideas, your reflections to Internus e Contornos. You have the email address there, internus@cna.com.br, and you have about a month and a half to send your text. If you want to know any other information about the publication, about BRAZ-TESOL, about Internus e Contornos, please write us, drop us a message, an email, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Okay? So then again, BRAZ-TESOL, to learn more, to exchange ideas, and Internus e Contornos, to register, to share with other professionals your ideas, your practice, your best practices, and anything you think is worth sharing. Okay? And finally, if you want to keep this conversation going, this is how you reach me. My email address plus my social media. Okay? If we want to move on with that conversation, to continue reflecting on professional development, which is one of my favorite areas, professional areas in our profession, I'll be very glad to have this exchange with you. Okay? Thank you very much. Now what I want to do is let me see if I learned how doing it by practicing. We'll stumble, we'll fall, we'll get back up and move on again. Years ago, decades ago, Pelé said that Brazilians didn't know how to vote. And the answer at that time, my father wrote an article, and the answer was they learned to vote by voting. When they took us the right, when they took from us the right of voting, the practice of voting, we had many years we couldn't keep that learning going on. So my idea is, no, we're not ready. As professional and as people, we're usually not ready to have people tell us about us. But I believe we can reach that by practicing. Okay? Thank you so much for your question. Any others? This was the first one. I know when we have a live transmission like this one, it's not good to be in silence. So I'll keep talking till you can think of a question. But I have a question for you, and then you can answer me, which is, have you ever tried? I'll make the presentation available. I've made it already available to Disal, and then you can ask our colleagues at Disal how to have access to this presentation, right? My question to you is, has any of you here ever tried reflective journal? They were very common in the early 2000s. There were many presentations like this one, how to develop, how to make a reflective journal. Has any of you ever tried it? Oh, I see here Luis Antonio has tried. And how was it, Liz? Was it useful to you? And to any other of you? I did that by the time I was getting ready for my master's degree, and it was really, really useful. And I know, I'll tell you a secret. I'll let you in a secret. I have all those notebooks up until this very day. They're stored in a special place at in my apartment, and I haven't read them in a long time. But I'm really glad I did. I wrote them. I did that long time ago, and now I can compare. I also have, that was not very common at that time, some of my classes and my teachers' meetings when I was a coordinator, video recorded, taped. And that's also something very good for us to reflect upon by watching our own practice, watching us in action. So if you have the opportunity of recording your own classes, your own meetings, your own instances of professional practice, and then watching them as a third party, that may be very useful for your development. Like Luis Antonio said here, that it was very good for his improvement. Oh, hi, Bruno. Good to have you here. Bruno says, I've never, sorry, I can't see it. Let me try again. I've never had enough patience to write every day. However, I've been using my blog as some sort of oops, I'm trying to see. I'm not very good at this one. However, I've been using my blog as some sort of reflection repository, which I share with my peers. It's quite interesting to share thoughts and have people come up to you and comment. Good, excellent idea, Bruno. So I have a friend, some of you know, or perhaps many of you know, Marcelo Dalpino. He told me exactly that about his LinkedIn profile. He said it's like a place where he reflects upon his own practice with the help of other people. That includes me. Sometimes I write down comments for him on his LinkedIn profile. Very good idea. And it helps answer the two first questions, both how I see myself and how other people see me. Thank you. Very, very interesting idea, very interesting technique, Bruno. Marinez says here, it's just like exploratory practice. Exactly. And Bruno loves LinkedIn. Yeah, I think I'm more of a LinkedIn than an Instagram kind of guy because people say usually publish things about professional things only. And one more thing that's interesting, if I may suggest one more, is asking the people who've been working with you for a longer time and for a shorter time the same question, and be attentive to the answers. Because some people, we say, I've been working with some people, for some of the people here at CNA, for 16, almost 17 years now. And we say people get used to our flaws, right? As pessoas se acostumam com nossos defeitos. But then there's this person who started working with us perhaps 3-4 months ago. And she asks me things and she notices things the other ones don't anymore. So this kind of dialogue helps us again build our self-image, which will directly impact our professional self-us. Okay? Anything else, or should we wrap this up now? Well, again, guys, I think it's time for us to wrap up in these final 2 minutes. First, thank you, Bruno, and thank you all. First, I want to thank Disal for inviting us, for inviting CNA, inviting me to be here. As I said in the beginning, I have a debt of gratitude to Disal for how much what they did, what they do, new routes, their professionals, how they helped me become a good professional in the early years of my career and throughout my journey. Second, I want to thank you for your attention, and again to say that my being here today has to do with the celebrations of CNA's 50th anniversary. So I'm very proud and happy to be part of this team in such an important, relevant, and meaningful moment. And third, and most important of it all, I want to thank and congratulate each and every one of you who took 1 hour of your time on a Wednesday afternoon to not only listen to me, which I'm very grateful, but most importantly, to reflect on your own professional development. Thank you so very much, and I hope we'll be in touch. Thank you for your attention, and bye-bye.